This video is brought to you by nobody, because nobody wants to sponsor me. Hey, maybe you could be my sponsor. Go down to patreon.com/MrMattimation and give me your money. Thank you. Seems like these days every video game has to be an open world video game. Besides the obvious studios like Rockstar Games and Bethesda Game Studios, who have made open world games their entire identity, since 2015 we've seen Metal Gear, Assassin's Creed, Zelda join the mix. Mario Odyssey goes back to the Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine tradition of making each level an open world with many objectives, this time taking it a step further by removing the need to do these objectives linearly. Final Fantasy XV was the most open-ended Final Fantasy game in the series' history, and it seems like every new franchise has to be open world as well. You have Ubisoft prioritizing open world with Watch Dogs, Far Cry, even the Tom Clancy games got a few big open world titles in recent years. You have first-person shooters like Homefront and Wolfenstein Youngblood, which sort of don't make sense being as non-linear as they are. Even Toby Fox's Undertale follow-up, Deltarune, feels a lot more open in design than its predecessor did, and the final section of the game is, in a way, an open world. A lot of this is natural technological progression. Pretty much every 3D game engine under the sun allows for real-time asset streaming, which of course makes open-world video games easier to do than it was in the past, when you had to go through a loading screen to get from one end of Vice City to the other. And because open world is such an easy gimmick to do now, it makes sense that everyone's doing it. But should we be doing it? Some games just don't make sense as open world games, and as more games are becoming open world games, the list of games that don't make sense as open world games grows. Even open world staples like Grand Theft Auto make less sense as open world games now than they did in 2001. But how do we decide what games should and shouldn't be open world? How do we know when a game's map should look like this versus this? What you need to ask yourself is your open world essential to the player's enjoyment of the game? Does the gameplay make as much sense in a limited environment as it does in an open one? Was your game's story built around the world, or was the world built around the story?
Excuse me?
You're not from around here?
No.
Then leave me alone. I'm busy.
Grand Theft Auto V is a huge leap from its predecessors narratively. In GTA 3 and Vice City, the campaign missions feel like excuses to go on rampages, there aren't any real stakes, and the villains feel like token opposition to your killing spree. San Andreas had actual characters and an actual plot, but again, it feels supplementary to the gameplay. Some missions it feels like you're doing absolutely nothing. Plot points are brought up and then dropped without mention. Characters disappear from the story entirely and are never mentioned again. And then you have Grand Theft Auto 4, which taught me that a video game doesn't have to have likable or well-written characters. Grand Theft Auto V feels like you're playing a movie. The characters have actual motivations and are well thought out and likable, except this guy. I didn't like this guy so much. The story is intense, the dialogue is entertaining, the acting is believable, every setup is paid off, the cinematography isn't groundbreaking, but it works, and most of all, Los Santos feels like a believable setting. Until you step out of the story missions, that is. Then Los Santos feels like a backdrop. Once you're done with the story and the game leaves you to your own devices, there's almost no point in playing. As you explore Los Santos, you start to realize that a lot of it only exists to service the story, and the parts of the world that the story doesn't touch are bare. You start to realize that about half of the map goes entirely untouched for a large chunk of the game. You start to realize that you can't enter any of the buildings. All the cool shit you saw before was scripted, and you can't see it again without replaying the story. The NPCs are basically just walking in a straight line until you interact with them. There aren't that many side missions. Los Santos exists solely to serve as a backdrop to the campaign, and that begs the question: does it need to exist at all? Grand Theft Auto V makes exactly as much sense as a series of vignettes as it does an open world game, maybe even more sense. Obviously the driving missions justify the existence of a world beyond the shooting galleries, but they're just about the only thing keeping this game from just being a series of levels instead of one big open world with objectives dotted throughout. What happens when you take those driving sections away but keep the open world?
For a car like this.
Wait a second.
You get LA Noire, a game which didn't need to be open world but was anyway. This game felt like the open world was detrimental to the game as a whole. I constantly found myself wondering why I was driving from point A to point B when there was nothing interesting happening during the drive. Why didn't the game just teleport me to point B with a cutscene? Sure, there's occasionally a random encounter shootout that happens, but a lot of the time you're already preoccupied, and it leads you to this feeling that the world is, again, just a backdrop. It was created to serve the narrative rather than the other way around. Bethesda Game Studios is really good at creating worlds that feel like they should exist. Morrowind, the Capital Wasteland, Skyrim, the Commonwealth, hell, even Fallout 76's Appalachia is a world I enjoy exploring. What all of these worlds have in common is they don't feel married to the narrative. You don't need to follow the main story to appreciate these worlds, you just have to explore and you'll find something worth checking out. In Grand Theft Auto V, about half of the map is used by the campaign, and the other half of the map doesn't get used at all. You might find a funny billboard, but Grand Theft Auto V literally just has a whole ass town that I think the campaign doesn't touch once. There's a clothing store you can buy clothes from. It's got an airfield nearby that's used in some missions. That's about it. Ain't much to do in Grapeseed. Grapeseed is so boring that they had to give you something to do here in GTA Online, and even that was boring. And unprofitable. In Skyrim, I'd say the campaign probably touches a fourth of the map. Maybe another fourth of the map is stuff you'll run into along the way. What makes this example more enjoyable than Los Santos is that the other half doesn't need the narrative to be enjoyable, because it wasn't built to service the narrative. Rather, the narrative is a story which happens to exist in this world. The narrative is influenced by the world and vice versa, but the world stands well on its own. The Fallout games are similar. Oh no, Daddy needs my help turning on the water purifier. But there's a library here with books. I need to give the books to some egghead at the Pentagon, and Daddy is in McLean. Daddy can wait. Sorry, Daddy. Just to prove my point a little more, here's a sped up hour of me trying to find shit to do right after the tutorial in both Skyrim and Grand Theft Auto V, without touching either game's main quest.
Epsilonists were celebrating yesterday after the Supreme Court of the state of San Andreas overturned the Revenue Service's claim that the Epsilon program was a cult and a pyramid scheme and not a real religion, and therefore should have its charitable status removed. Mr. Lamar was believed to have amassed a fortune of $7 billion revenue estates of the Courthouse. I'm Carl Kelly. Markets were volatile as the Nasdaq index went into free fall, and we got hit hard before a late rally had everyone really
Now, I actually learned while filming all of that Grand Theft Auto 5 actually locks most activities off from you until you encounter it in the story, and this is my problem. The world only exists to serve the story. Things don't work until the game needs them to work. You can't even get a haircut until Lamar gives you permission.
You got rid of that old yee-yee ass haircut you get some bitches on your dick. Oh, better yet, maybe Tanisha will call your dog ass if she ever stop fucking with that brain surgeon, the lawyer she fucking with, nigga. What? Oh,
Please tell me how you're going to get the money to buy that minigun you've always wanted. Half of the money-making activities are locked. You're limited to robbing liquor stores, but wait, how are you going to rob the liquor store? You don't have a minigun! Okay, so you beat up the clerk and take his money from the register, you no-clip your way into the gun store, and the minigun is locked until 17 hours into the main story. I need my minigun, goddammit! Why are you going to let me explore this big-ass metropolis if you aren't going to let me do anything in it? You know why I've spent way more time playing these buggy pieces of shit over this well-polished masterpiece? Because I don't have to listen to Tommy Vercetti and Kane Lynch bitch about being old for 6 hours before getting to the good stuff. 2016's Hitman and its sequel, Hitman 2, drop you in these beautiful, detailed, yet contained open worlds for you to figure out the assassination puzzles. And if you turn the hints off, guess what? You might spend hours in each level. That's good open world design, worlds that make you want to explore and see what's around the corner. And yeah, a lot of the time, the thing that's around the corner is kind of simple and a little lame, but it's still fun just to get to see what's on the other side of that rock, what's in the hut across the river, what's in Whiterun, what's in Falkreath, where's the meadery, there's vampires, shit, fuck. I just entered a drinking contest and now I'm married to a hag raven. I woke up in a town that's haunted by ghosts. I just watched a guy get his head chopped off. Where's the main quest? Shit, I'm lost. Oh no, fuck! You know what I found around the corner in Los Santos? A dick joke. That's all. Okay, I've dicked on Grand Theft Auto enough here. The truth is that open world gaming is a trend that seems to have made its way into every major game development studio out there when it really shouldn't have. Why did Metal Gear Solid 5 need the big empty desert? Why is Final Fantasy 15 so dependent on the big empty desert? Are you seeing a pattern here? Because I am. Assassin's Creed, Mario, Fallout New Vegas, 2 different GTAs. Why on earth, if every game has to be open world, why do they all have to involve deserts? This shit isn't fun, it isn't pretty, it's boring and desolate, like a desert. Would you put a featureless desert in a level-based game? What if Undertale had a long section where you crossed a big open field with nothing in it? Would that be fun? Would it contribute to the game's replay value? It wouldn't and it wouldn't. It would make me dread getting to the boring part where nothing happens, and the game already has an entire mode where you don't do anything and nothing fun happens. But I'm getting off track. Not every game needs an open world, we know that. And some games are more suited to the open world than others. But are there any games which would do well in the open world genre that haven't tried it yet? It seems like everybody's doing it now, right? Well, there is one franchise that hasn't done it yet. One that's been long abandoned by its publisher. One which maybe will never get the chance to impress audiences again. Silent Hill was debatably already a game about exploration, albeit in a more linear sense than something like Skyrim or Breath of the Wild, and the horrifying, visceral, puzzle-laden environments of the Otherworld were, in a sense, dungeons. So we could loosely define Silent Hill as a very linear dungeon crawler. So what if we removed linearity from the equation? What does an open-world Silent Hill look like? Maybe you're playing as old Norman Guy Fieri, and you're dropped in the town. Who knows why you're here? Maybe your daughter's missing. Maybe you killed your wife and came here to kill yourself. Maybe you're a sexually repressed trucker or an escapee from an insane asylum. Maybe it's an RPG and you get a psychology exam at the beginning of the game that determines who you are. Whatever the case, you get your radio and your flashlight and maybe a starter weapon, and then you're dropped, perhaps randomly, into one of the town's well-traversed districts. You have a main objective, but the game hasn't told you how to achieve it or even what it is. You have to explore the town and figure out how the hell you're supposed to get out of it. There are a variety of buildings, hospitals, churches, what have you to explore, each holding a piece of the town's mystery with no set order in which you have to tackle them. Some of them are required to progress through the main story, but some of them are purely bonus objectives. Maybe you're helping out some other characters you met in Silent Hill, you meet a few weirdos, maybe there's somebody else who's going through a predicament similar to yours. You get cool bonus stuff like weapons and collectibles from doing side content. Maybe you'll learn some lore you wouldn't have seen otherwise, and the amount of side content you do influences the ending you get. The player is rewarded for exploring and playing the game the way he or she wants to play it. The game becomes more replayable because you might not see everything in one playthrough, and the gameplay feels like a natural progression on what we've seen in the past. Plus, it'd make me really happy, and not a lot of things make me happy these days. While we're at it, throw in a random element to make sure every playthrough is truly unique. You could randomize loot, or add a weather system that increases the density of the fog that covers the town, lowering visibility and possibly hiding stronger monsters. Or, you could do something truly fucked up. Something so evil, so sinister, so totally out of left field, that not even those evil bastards at Konami have thought of it yet. You could do all of the above and randomize the Otherworld. That's right, Buster. I hope you brought your brown pants to work today, because gone are the days of predictable scripted horror. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you are constantly in danger of hearing that air raid siren, turning wherever you are into a nightmare labyrinth and sending Silent Hill's fiercest enemies your way. Doors that were locked are now unlocked. Walls are now doors. You're in a hallway filled with doors. Also, add a stealth system. This game is perfect for that. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting me on Patreon. I normally make cartoons, but I'm thinking of doing stuff like this more often. Also, check out my cartoons. I did a few about Undertale. You nerds like Undertale, right? Okay, I'm gonna go lie in bed and think about all the mean things girls said to me in high school. Take care! And an extra special thanks to my Patreon supporters: Chris Ross, Cross Axis 39, Dino Wolf, Dr. Sweetleaf, Macaru, Sanic Details, and Tanya B. Your support means a lot to me. Thank you.